Yay! Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm super excited. I'm Jasmine. This is my channel, Jasmine Ambrosia. I have like a super cool guest with me today. I've really enjoyed watching your channel and watching your channel like grow so much in the amount of time that you've been on YouTube. And like, I love your content and I'm excited to share you on my platform. So, introduce yourself.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That was lovely. My name is Taya Kennedy, and I started YouTube September of 2021. So I've been doing it just over a year, and it's been exciting. It's been lots of fun to do, and just meeting really cool people like you, getting to hang out and meet all these new people. It's been really fun.
We are both having a bev, if you will. I don't know if you guys have ever had these. They're by the brand Arizona. This is a sunrise. So I'm having this is a cherry punch flavor. It's a sparkling water. And then I also have a White Claw here that I might switch over to. So that's what I'm having.
I've got good old gin and tonic. You can't go wrong.
Which you really can't. And I love a botanical gin, especially during the, it's still going on really. But when we were locked down, here in the States, I made a lot of like infused gins where I just got some rosemary and some fruit together and threw it into a jar and just kind of let it sit in my pantry for a little bit. It was super good. Super, super good.
That sounds really good. I've never made infused alcohol.
Smirnoff, I think, also has a botanical gin as well. I think they have a couple different ones, and they have botanical vodkas too.
Well, there's a whole world of booze that I'm unfamiliar with.
This is going to make me kind of sound like an alcoholic. I love to drink, but I especially love like the artistry of it. Yes. There's this book, Amy Blackthorne's Botanical Brews. I don't know if you've heard of that book or not, but it's like, yeah, I got that book. Love it. Has lots of cool recipes in it. So I've totally not planned anything for this stream either. Like, I think that, we've talked about maybe talking about like some traditional witchcraft topics at a later time. I mean, we can talk about some of that in this stream too. And I normally stream for about an hour. So, but yeah, this is kind of like our getting to know each other stream. So
yeah, that's what we said, right? It'll just be like a getting to know you because, yeah, we've messaged, we've chatted, but yeah, we've never really like talked face to face. So yay, technology.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool to think that like we are literally like hundreds and hundreds of miles apart. And like because of the internet, we're able to make these sort of connections. And I really feel like being witches in this era that we are in, like what a world that we're in right now, where technology is like opening all this up and helping so much information be so much more readily available.
I always throw back to like, imagine like back in the 1600s and you wanted to do something like this. You were on your own. It's not like there was like all these witches hanging out just waiting to like welcome you. And like nowadays it's so prevalent and it's all over social media and it's easy to find people and connect with people like all over the world. And yeah, it's pretty special.
So what got you coming into the world, the Wild West of witchy YouTube? What got you here? I feel like you've talked about this on your channel at one point.
Way back when. Basically I don't want to call it a calling, but something just said to me, like, you need to share your voice. And my end game was I really wanted to teach witchcraft. But I was like, who am I to just put myself out there and be like, hi, so I'm just going to teach some witchcraft now. Just come and like, pay some money and I'll teach you. Like, who am I? Nobody knows who I am. So I thought I wasn't quite ready to go that far yet. And I thought, I need to share my voice. And I was watching a lot of like witchy YouTube and witchy Instagram. And I loved it, but I really felt like there wasn't a lot of like, I don't want to be negative, but authentic witchcraft, like dirty, like, hi, this is what it really looks like. There's like beautiful, beautiful work out there by people and I love it and it's inspirational, but that's not what my witchcraft looks like. Like I did a video the other day of here's my spaces. Like here's the cluttered mess that I live in and that I do my witchcraft in. This is what it can really look like. Don't be discouraged. And so I kind of, that was sort of my initial goal for the channel, was to sort of present like authentic real life, like down to earth. This is what it really looks like, witchcraft.
Yeah, and I think you do a really good job of that, like on your channel. I've seen some of your videos, like the one where you were showing your office, and I was like, okay, we're getting real up in here. Like, because there's not a lot of witches that like because witchcraft, well, and like witchcraft really does have like an ugly, messy side to it. And I think just in general, living in like a very capitalistic society, like everyone is trying to, I mean, and also too on YouTube, like most people are looking like there's something that they're doing here. Like there's some other alternative that they're trying to push or something, or some other narrative. I also think that like, you know, there's pros and cons to this, but like the Tumblr witch era, I think that era we've crossed out. I feel like we've crossed from that into something else. Like, and I think that like on Tumblr there was, I saw witchcraft really changing a lot very, very quickly, and like evolving and growing, and like a lot of UPG, which I have nothing against UPG at all. Like I think that that's a super important part of your practice, is to have some UPG and not just taking this from a book because this particular book told you that this is the particular way that you're supposed to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I missed the Tumblr era. I was like super big into witchcraft, and when I was like, 19 through like even when my daughter was born, I was 22. I was on like MSN groups and Yahoo groups, like way back, like oh my god, like that would have been like 1999, 2000, 2001, and then I kind of really got off the internet for quite a few years. I didn't have a computer at home. We didn't have smartphones yet. So really the only access I had to computers was at work. So I wasn't really, so that I missed that whole like Tumblr era. And then like, as I came back to it, however many years ago, it was, everything was on YouTube, Instagram, a little bit of Facebook, like, but yeah, it was really after the years of Tumblr.
Well, and I plan on talking with Cricket Song. Like we have like a whole social media episode planned, because I feel like the witchcraft world in these digital spaces, because like I kind of look at it as like we have the physical world, we have the astral realm, but there's also like this digital universe too, and like these little pockets on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or Tumblr, which I haven't even been on the witchy side of Tumblr, so I don't even know if that's still living. I know that Tumblr pretty much had a mass exodus when certain content was no longer allowed on the platform, which it still is. You just have to find it in particular ways. But like each social media platform really has kind of its own vibe. And what I have found for myself is what you're talking about, kind of like this real deal, more nitty gritty, everyday, real life, authentic, like this is what witchcraft looks like. I personally see more of that on YouTube than I do like Instagram. Instagram for me is like more of like the photo picture perfect cookie cutter, isn't this beautiful witchcraft, which has its place too, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Like I don't mean to diss anybody that does that kind of content. I find it's very inspirational. Like it makes me go like, oh, I want to do something witchy now, right? When I see it. But but when I do something witchy, it doesn't look like that. It would be lovely if it did, but it really doesn't. But no, and I do agree. I think Instagram is very much it very much has that high aesthetic to it, and there are a lot more people on YouTube, especially like smaller creators who are like just telling it like it is.
I will say that when I see a lot of like aestheticism come out, is it's normally in like altar tours, those sort of videos, Book of Shadow flip throughs. Like sometimes I was actually talking, Australia is one of my mods who's in the chat, and she's one of my homegirls who was on my podcast with me and everything as the Cauldron Bubbles. And we were talking about this not too long ago about like, your Book of Shadows is kind of for you, theoretically. Like, I mean, some people have this idea that they're going to pass on this grand high, most high grimoire to whoever, whatever. But like, really, it's a witch's scrapbook theoretically. And like, when you watch some people's Book of Shadows flip throughs, it's their book. They can put whatever they want to in it. But like, why not put like your UPG that you're not going to find in like Scott Cunningham's book? Like, if you look through Book of Shadow flip throughs, and this is not a read, and this is not shade, this is just a matter of a fact. Everyone's Book of Shadows on YouTube, they all have the same pages in them. Like if you've seen 3 or 4 flip throughs, a lot of them start to look very, very similar.
Yes. No,
and
I
absolutely
agree.
And I think that you posted a video of like your planner, and like I really liked how you put those like planetary and like El Camille symbols. And I think you had made a joke about like how if your partner had saw it, like they might not really even know what this means. And I was like, I related to that so hard.
He came in today. I was doing up March today, and he walked in. He goes, "Oh, your planner. You're drawing in your planner." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, honey." And that's exactly what I was doing. I was copying out all the symbols into my thing. I'm like, "I'm drawing little pictures." Yes, honey. That's good.
Yes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I really didn't like think of any like questions. I guess I was more just kind of like, this is like a really cool chick, and I really have been enjoying your content, and especially, you know, after reading Keldon's book on traditional witchcraft, which I have kind of my take on that I plan on posting as well. Like I still hesitate to necessarily use the label for myself, because like, you know, I'm like, what are labels? And you know, but like a lot of that really resonated to the point where I was like, wow, like I've been doing some of this stuff without even having some of this terminology. Like, perfect example, the other day you were like, in reference to my shape-shifting video, you were like, fetch. I didn't even know what that really was at the time. Like, because that's something that I've been doing for 5-6 years now. Like, it's a concept that I've been, you know, so to me it was very like, I guess not that I needed the confirmation, but it's always nice to have confirmation that I feel like the mighty dead and the witches of the past, I feel really are guiding me and leading me in some way, in ways that I don't even understand at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I think traditional witchcraft is an umbrella term. So what you do probably falls underneath like that banner, but you're probably more specialized than that, right? Whatever you call it would be more, right? It's not just general traditional witchcraft, it's very specific.
Well, yeah, I was talking with a friend. Yeah, I was talking with a friend about this too. And I was like, I think for me, one of the things that I don't know how comfortable I feel about the term traditional witchcraft is like, what tradition? Like, because it, like, I don't know, like, it feels very Eurocentric to me.
Traditional really just means pulled from folklore. So a lot of people call it folkloric witchcraft, which I think is probably a better term, folkloric witchcraft, than traditional witchcraft, because people have all sorts of different ideas about what traditional means. To some people, that means like it's unbroken line of witchcraft that goes back traditionally. That's not what it means.
Right.
And some people see tradition as, it's like a tradition. So it's very specific. It's just this, and it's not. It's this very broad term. And I think, folkloric is probably a better descriptor of it, because you can pull from folklore from any end, right? Not just.
Well, and like that's kind of part of the tea too, is like in that video, in the description, I have like this link from this publisher that is like talking about the folklore around like witches in Latin America, like shape shifting into owls. And like he explores this whole world with illustrations, and like they're not using the word fetch. Does that mean that it's not quite the same thing? Because it seems pretty similar, like conceptually.
Yeah.
You know, and also there's like Arabian kitabs and grimoires that like are depicting sihiras, witches practicing sihir, shape shifting into like black dogs and serpents and all types of things. And like the, you know, Arabian courts and stuff within lore, but also within like fantasy too. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And I think it is like different terms for the same sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Is really where I would go with that. maybe a little bit different here and a little bit different there, but generally speaking, they cover
Conceptually, yeah.
Conceptually, yeah, no, exactly. So here's a question for you, because I know you do a lot of like, what did you call it, Arabian kind of traditional stuff. But I was
Sahir.
Sahir, okay. I was watching your videos, and like years ago, you were talking about Celtic pantheon and working with the Celtic pantheon. So I'm curious how you got from Celtic pantheon to Sahir.
Well, I was never really like working necessarily with the Celtic pantheon. What really pulled me mostly to this is the Morrigan, who I have like tattooed on my arm. And so I think to start with, growing up, like my first kind of like recollection of like, what is the divine? What is spirituality? Islam is a huge influence, of course, in some of my background and my upbringing, as is some Comedicism as well. Like, I mean, I don't know if you've seen my videos with like my grandmother or whatnot, but like I grew up around Egyptian gods in art and in decor, not really in a way of like being worshipped per se, but more in like a cultural art decor sort of way, like having papyri of Anubis or Bast or whatever as like general home decor. So like Allah God and these other gods, I kind of was always around. But even though my family is highly spiritual, I, growing up, was like a pretty staunch atheist. Because I was like, this shit's crazy. Some of the stuff that my family's into is like, why do we have to run a natal chart or do astrology to plan a wedding? This doesn't make any sense. It's all made up. Like my mom's prayer candles, or like the idea of prayer mats and having special things to pray on. I was like, it's a rug. Like it was $7.99 at Al Basha. Like what's so holy and sacred about it? Right. Oh. So I really rebelled against a lot of like spirituality, period. Because I was just like, this is stupid, blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of like was like, okay, because like astrology and divination were kind of culturally a part of my upbringing. Now, my family, they would not call this witchcraft at all, of course. No. This is just, astrology is just, it's just what you do, like, yeah.
I just did a video on that today. Just because somebody does witchy things doesn't mean they're a witch.
Yeah. And so then like, when I started getting more into Wicca specifically, getting in touch with like the very Wiccan Wheel of the Year. And like, I had done my dedication at the time on Imbolc. And so I was like, okay, Bridget is the goddess for me. Like she's going to be like my matron goddess. Cause like, I thought at the time, that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to have like a goddess. So I was like, I'm going to do that. Well, I don't really think Bridget really actually necessarily was for me. I think that I just kind of picked Bridget. I don't necessarily know if I feel like Bridget picked me in finger quotes, because I have a complicated relationship with deity still. Well, then after that, I've always really liked Celtic stuff. And like, to my knowledge, and I have done some testing, like I don't have any in me, but that doesn't mean that I don't have an affinity or an attraction, towards it, because I do. And so that kind of led me into like Morgana Le Fay, which kind of took me into like the Morrigan. And I know that's controversial yet brave to say, because people are like, they're totally different. They're nothing alike, blah, blah, blah. But I've always loved Arthurian legend too. So Morgana Le Fay took me to the Morrigan. And then like, I just started really seeing a lot of her signs, symbols, and correspondences. And I was like, okay, I'm really into divination. She's over prophecy, war, battle. I feel like my whole life has been a war and a battle. So like the whole metaphor of a battlefield, I can really relate to. And so I was like, okay, this is where it is for me. And then that led me further down this rabbit hole of like essentially using the Morrigan more as an archetype for what I just kind of consider to be like the dark goddess archetype as a whole. So that's where that took me. Now, Sahir wise, like that's something really just totally separate. That is you basically bringing in Islamic influences into the practice, because there are lots of superstitions, like Arabian superstitions and folkloric practices, like especially, I mean, talismans, literally. Like I just picked up one today. I'll show you when we get done. from this live. But earlier today, me and a couple of my coven mates, we went to this place called Al Basha, which is like a Mediterranean halal market. And most of these sorts of grocery stores, these Middle Eastern grocery stores, one side is like a cafe and one side is a grocery. And so in the grocery side, they have like lots of like really pretty like talismans, but that's like the idea of enchanted objects, the Ring of Solomon, lamps, putting spirits in bottles, Solomonic magic in terms of literal like enslaving spirits. That's the type of magic I'm more familiar with per my own studies of like, you know, this is something that is in my background and that I feel like I need to connect to and be more familiar with. And working with the jinn, marids, huns, afrits, those sorts of spirits has been something that like has been around me my entire life. Like, oh, that's jinn shit. You know what I mean? Like, or like my grandmother keeping houseplants, thinking that like that's going to keep negative spirits or people's jinn away from her, and having a real fear of these afrits or these shadow people. So yeah, my spirituality has definitely changed a lot. I've started on YouTube in like 2015 or 16, and I think I was 22 at the time. So yeah, it's definitely evolved, and it still will. And I think that like, that's one of the things I like about YouTube is even though it's super cringe sometimes, just like Facebook posts, we were like, oh, I really posted that 3 years ago. Like, it's kind of cool to go back and be like, oh, well, look at like where we grew from there to there. Like, you know?
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Because it is, I think witchcraft is always a journey, and it's always you know, your practice is always growing and changing. And I think on some level it always should be, right? You don't want it to get stagnant and dull. But I'm always just interesting where people's paths come from, because when I started, I did not want anything to do with anything Celtic, because everybody's freaking Celtic. Everybody's like da 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 with the Celtic, this, that, and the other. And, you know, I was just like, that's just ridiculous. And so I really just had nothing to do with it. And then it turns out over the years, like ancestry wise, I'm like 47% Scottish. And my practice is very Celtic now, which is like, when I started this whole thing, I was like, nope, not going there. And then over the years, it morphs and changes. And yeah. It's always just interesting to see where people come from.
I remember, you know, earlier in my practice, because I kind of went from like growing up kind of spiritual and doing things because that's just what you did in our family. That's just a part of what you did. You know what I mean? It wasn't really an up for debate kind of thing. It's just as much a cultural thing. Like, I mean, I still think that the practice of like fasting for Ramadan can be a very spiritual thing. Like, even though my relationship with this has changed, you know, there are still parts of that I think are really beautiful. And even just like a cultural or tradition sort of way, even if I don't share the same faith per se. But I remember probably when I was around my teenage years, I would say like, this is like 15, 16 or so. I was like, well, if witchcraft is real, then I'm going to try to intentionally fuck up as bad as I possibly can. Cause there's all of this like, oh, don't do that, cause then this is going to happen. Oh, don't do that, cause then this will happen. Oh, you need to make sure that you're really protecting yourself. And I was just like a rootin' tootin' pistol whipping Annie who was just going to fuck up as much as I possibly could. Like, be as disrespectful, as loud, as belligerent, as like taboo, against the grain, edgelordy as I possibly could. Like, hang my feet off the bed, let the demons grab me and pull me down, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like trying to instigate almost.
Yeah.
And nothing really got super crazy. So I was like, okay, maybe this isn't even like real. You know what I mean? Like, maybe this is like not what I'm thinking. Like, why hasn't something come and like beat my ass yet? Like, I'm doing everything they told me not to. And then I was like, okay, started kind of getting into more of like the Wiccan teas. And I remember when I was in this other Wiccan group at the time, this would have been when I was probably 20, 21, going into 22, right around the time I started my YouTube channel. I was so against like Abrahamic influence in the craft. Like I was like, this is terrible and stupid. And this is what I tried to get away from and blah, blah, blah. And like, why would you want to incorporate that and like witchcraft and like, you know, my beliefs on that has definitely changed. Like you'll find older content of mine being like, oh, Psalms, why use that? Oh, Eid, Surats, like why use those?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I grew up Roman Catholic and I was like kicking hard against the church. It was like I did not want, to the point that like when I first came to witchcraft, I was like, it was about the goddess. It was all about the goddess. And like I was like, God, no. Like I couldn't do Wicca because it was too ritualized. I was like, no, I'm getting away from the ritual. Like I don't want that, like you must do X, Y, and Z on A, B, and C days. Like forget it. And now I've come like full circle. And yeah, not only do I work probably more with the god than I do with the goddess, I have like looked at incorporating like Catholic elements back into my witchcraft, like full circle.
Right? I know, right? Like that's where I feel like I would say returned as an adult, you know, not as a teenager, not as someone in my early 20s, but someone, you know, I'm basically 30 now. Like I feel like I'm on that other side of 25 where I'm seeing things differently than I did when I was on the younger side of 25. And I'm sure when I'm on the other side of 35, I will see things differently than I do now. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's like when you're a kid and you're raised in a system, it's natural a little bit to like revolt against it, right? Mm-hmm. Just like you kind of push against your parents, you push against religion, you push against all these things that are sort of imposed on you because I can. And then you get your freedom. And then I don't know, I found for me, I did a lot of reading and a lot of research. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, that faith isn't as cut and dried as it was when I was 7, right? Oh, there's a lot more nuance to that. And, you know, studying like, you know, pagan faiths, and then especially like in, you know, in Britain, the takeover of the Catholic Church, and then Catholicism being persecuted as witchcraft. Like there's this whole history that, you know, you don't learn about when you're 14 going to Catholic high school. Like, you know, and then, oh, okay, I can see how, you know, with a more worldly view, it's different than what I thought it was when I was 12.
Well, and I think like mainstream witchcraft culture has changed so much. Like I remember, you know, even when I was in my early 20s, when I was working at this new age store, like most of the people I worked with at the new age store were like still considered themselves pretty Christian. Like it was just Christianity with like, it was Doreen Virtue Christianity with like tarot cards and like crystals and like, you know what I mean?
Christianity.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I was the only Wiccan, how I chose to identify at the time, who worked there. And like I remember that being like such a big thing. But like witches don't even believe in the devil. And like I don't even believe in demons. Yeah. And like now my practice is so completely different. Like my belief in like demons now versus like what I thought demons were and weren't in 2016 is like this is night and day.
Yeah. And I think it comes with experience. It comes with that time and putting in the work. And that's the point, right? Your practice should grow and change and shouldn't be the same as when you very first started, when you were young and naive.
No, I totally agree. And like, I think because I started my channel, you know, at the age that I did, and because I've left a lot of these videos up, like that's feedback that I've gotten from people is like, oh my gosh, your practice has like changed so much. And I'm like, yeah, isn't it supposed to, babe?
Yeah.
I would hope so. I would hope that my spirituality and my practice from when I was 21 years old versus 30 would be a little bit more mature and more well read and researched and maybe have some more practice, really.
Yeah. Some more UPG.
Yeah.
You gain a little bit of extra knowledge, a little bit of experience, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Okay. So here's another question for you.
I'm so flattered and honored that you wrote out questions. It does make me feel a little bit not prepared, but this is cool.
I always got to have things to talk about. So I'm like, I'm making questions. All right. So what was the first witchcraft book you purchased?
Wicca by DJ Conway. And I still have it today. And, you know, I don't identify per se as Wiccan now, but I will say that that book holds a very special place in my heart. And especially when I got that book, I was really going through some motions and I was really trying to find how to incorporate ritual, because that's what I was really looking for, was like ritual and tradition in like a not Abrahamic kind of way is what I feel like I was looking for. Like, and I liked how DJ Conway, it was this whole book about like your year and a day and like this beautiful journey of self-discovery, and like had cute little like exercises at the end of each chapter. That was my first book, followed by Silver Raven Wolf to write a Silver Broomstick, of course.
I never had that one, but I had Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner by Scott Cunningham. That was the first book I ever bought. And yeah, same thing. I read it and I was like, I'll take what I want, but most of this isn't working for me. But I can never get rid of it because I have so many memories of sitting like it was the first apartment where I'd lived by myself, right? I always had roommates before. That was my very first, like all my own apartment. And I set up a little altar and and this book was like my guide. And I have so many like fond memories of that. I can never get rid of that book. I have a bunch of books from way back in the day that I'm like, oh, they're just terrible, but I can't even.
Same. For sure. For sure.
But I think that's just it with that growing and changing over time, right? Like,
and like,
pray
tell, I hope so. Right. Like, I hope so. Like, not as like in a sense of like to shade anyone, but I feel like if your practice is the exact same that it was 10 years ago, then like, how much are you really practicing? Like, you know?
No, absolutely. Okay. What's something witchy that you've always wanted to learn?
Oh gosh. Why is this a hard question?
Oh, I had to think about it. And I don't know that I have anything on my list right now that's something that I've always wanted to learn that I haven't. But what I've done recently kind of speaks to it because, I've built myself like a Scottish witchcraft practice and like very folk magic from Scotland. And I was like, I really want to learn Scots Gaelic. Like I'm reading the Carmina Gadelica, which is like a huge collection of like charms and chants and incantations from, the Highlands and Islands of Scotland. And it's all presented like it's all in Gaelic and then with an English translation. I'm like, I want to be able to read that in the language it's written in. So
yeah, I don't know.
34 days ago, I started learning Scots Gaelic. And it's been a trip.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I've been on Duolingo every day for 34 days now.
Okay, love Duolingo. I've
learned so much. It's totally amazing. Like I can actually say things in Scots Gaelic, and I'm like coming at it with like no, nothing. So
well, and I feel like I'm sure, especially with that sense of like it there being folkloric aspects to this, like I'm sure there is some information that is probably kept behind that language, because like Sahir is definitely very much the same way, which I wouldn't necessarily say that that's something that I've always had an interest in, because like I, especially when I was younger, was like very, very, very interested in Wicca specifically. Like that's what I was really into. And then I also had a really hard time pulling like cultural aspects and practices of my family and of my family's background into Wicca, because it always just felt like, to me, I was kind of trying to like put these two pieces together that really didn't go together very well.
Yeah.
And now I don't really care as much. Like I don't like.
Yeah. As long as it works for you, right? That's I think it was Laura Tempest Zakroff who I heard say it. And she's like, if it works for you, it works. If it doesn't work for a single another person in the whole entire world, but it works for you, then it works. Like,
well, and I also think too, like it's my practice. It's your practice. It's their practice. Like, you know what I mean?
If it works for you, it works. Okay. What is your proudest witchcraft accomplishment?
I don't know if I can talk about that on air.
That one's not for public consumption. Okay, pick something else then.
My proudest witchcraft accomplishment. I think that, like, for me being the woman that I am, for being a trans woman, for being kind of neurodivergent, for struggling with mental illness, coming from a family of abuse and addiction, and like talking about battles and like the Morgan and stuff, like, you know, I've been through a lot of stuff. Like I'm 30, but I really feel older than that. And I think it's because a lot of what I've been through. And to me, like I made a whole video about this, but honestly and truly, I do think that like being a witch and committing myself to the craft is honestly what saved my life. Like, not to be like dramatic and like go there in our first like thing, but like having lost friends to addiction and like unaliving themselves, which we've talked a little bit about, like behind, like I had mentioned. And I was like, this might sound just so weird, but like, you really do remind me of this good friend of mine. Like, I remember when I saw your, one of your videos, like not necessarily appearance wise, but like energy wise and like the way you phrase things. And like, I don't know, I was like, man, this really reminds me of like my friend Gabby. Like, and,
Awesome.
but yeah, I think that that's probably my greatest accomplishment is like thriving in the face of adversity my entire life, like, and pushing through. Like, that's kind of how I look at it as, because there's a lot of things that come up that have come up against me throughout the years and things that I still deal with, whether it be personal or societal. And like, I think that witchcraft is a very empowering thing if you allow it to be.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that through witchcraft is like, I find it empowering to think that like I'm doing this myself, as opposed to giving credit to God, as like some other people in my family might do, you know, but never the bad stuff for God, never giving God the bad credit, only the good credit.
Oh no. Yeah. No, I think that's totally just lost my train of thought there.
How about yourself? Like, what do you think your greatest accomplishment is? That's hard.
No, that is hard. I don't have anything quite so profound as that. Like it just all seems so petty now compared to that. Like it like saved my life. I'm like, okay, well, la la la, never mind. I don't know. I think for me, my biggest accomplishment so far is finishing my first year of witchcraft school, which I haven't actually finished, but I'm almost finished, and that will be probably. That would probably be my greatest accomplishment, is to have come from this place of like, psh, like, I don't want tradition. I don't want people telling me what to do. I don't want to work with the God. I don't want to like, hi, I need a tradition. I need somebody to give me rules and boundaries and give me structure and fill in all the sort of gaps that I've missed. Cause I've been completely self-taught from like books and YouTube videos. Like, right. I've never had a coven. I've never had any sort of anything in person. So everything was sort of bombed together by myself, and to have come all the way around and the other way to say like, yeah, you know what? I do want to learn this, and I do want to learn something that I can pass on to other people as well. Do you know what I mean? Like
I can see you doing that. I can definitely see you doing that.
Like my personal practice isn't quite in line exactly with what the tradition that I'm learning, but the tradition that I'm learning definitely speaks to me. And it's definitely something that I can move forward in. And it's starting to seep more into my personal practice. I'm starting to see some overlap. And yeah, so I think finishing that first year, because I'm also, I've got ADHD. I'm medicated for ADHD. I've got, anxiety disorders, and doing anything like homeschooling yourself in anything is really freaking hard. And it's like 52 exercises. So there's one a week for an entire year. And the fact that I'm a little behind, but I'm basically on pace to get it done is like huge to me. Cause when I started it, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this.
Yeah, that's definitely, I mean, I've even just tried doing like year-long challenges and stuff before that have been hard for me to like stick to. Like even just here, like on YouTube. So yeah, I think that that's a great accomplishment.
So yeah, not quite as profound as yours, but like just that idea that I feel like I've accomplished something in my practice, right? Like, what's the word? I'm going to get to put a label on it, I guess, is really what it is, right? I'll be able to say, that's my tradition. There's that little box that I can pigeonhole myself in, which I know a lot of people fight against, and I did for years. I'm like, I don't want I don't want to be pigeonholed. I don't want to have a title, if you will, but being able to come out the other side, I actually think that that's something that turns out I do want.
Well, and I think profoundness is like objective. Like, you know what I mean? I think that can be profound too. Like,
no, yeah, just not like earth shattering,
oh, yeah. I don't know. We really went there. I have a video on my channel where I like talk about, it was like this trend that I saw people talking about like, what has witchcraft done for you? And like, I think I might've seen it from your page even.
That was me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was like one of the first videos I watched of yours.
Yeah.
Cause I think I kind of made almost like video-esque response. I was like, I saw this on this person's channel. I thought like, I'd never even thought of that. Like, what has witchcraft done for me? Like, cause to me, it's like at this point, witchcraft is just so like part of my life that I sometimes don't even really think of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and then trying to pinpoint down something specific, like what hasn't it done?
Yeah. Well, I think that's when I made that video, was kind of that idea of like, we're all doing it, but what are you getting from it? What are the intangible benefits that you're receiving from this? Because I think there's a lot of them.
I do too. And I think that for most people, like it's giving them a sense of security. I feel like it's giving them confidence. I feel like it can be a very empowering thing. Like I like the idea of believing in taking the power into my own hands and like feeling like I have like a say on this like massive floating screaming rock in the universe through like the void. Like I like feeling, that like I'm not just experiencing, but I'm an active part of whatever this whole mess that we're all doing is.
Yes, absolutely. I was talking about that the other day about it's about witchcraft is about self-empowerment, right? And it's not about asking higher powers to do, can you look out for me and making requests. It's about being an active participant and being self-empowered and self-aware and doing for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have to talk about American versus Canadian.
Yeah, I think that'd be so cool. Like that was one of the first things that kind of came to my mind because I talked to Aldine, who's in Australia, and we have a video talking about like American and Australian. Because I'm sure, like, I literally know hardly anything about anything folkloric or lore-wise or urban legend-wise or whatever in Canada. Like, I really...
Yeah.
Moose?
Yeah. Bears and moose. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of hunting going on up here. Oh. Oh. Well, and Canada's such a huge country. I mean, so is the States. I mean, you look at, somewhere like New Orleans to like New York, right? Like you've got huge differences in your own country.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, Canada is like, it's vast. And like you go to the Maritimes and I can't even barely understand what they're saying there because they talk with such thick accents and they have such a regional dialect. And then you go to Quebec and everybody speaks French. And
do you know any French?
Yeah, I'm bilingual.
Okay. Yeah. I know a little. Not like, not enough to like have a conversation. I know like some bad words and like.
Yeah, about right now, if you were to just like walk up to me and start speaking French, I would probably be a little bit pie-eyed because I haven't used it in so long.
There's a lot of French mixed in with Arabic as well, like especially in North Africa, like that. There's a lot of interweaving there. Yeah. So,
yeah, my daughter went to a francophone school, so like French as a first language school here in the city, and wow, it was an eye-opener. Most of those kids were immigrants from African countries who all spoke French as a first language. And she was one of like 3 white kids in her class. And it was really different to see, just because that's not your typical demographic in Edmonton. But yeah.
So what's that area like? Because like here in the States, I live in, what we call like the Midwest, which is just, I don't even know. Like It's not the East Coast, it's not the West Coast, it's not the South. It's like a weird melting pot of all of that going on. And we say fuck you with a casserole, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I live on the plains, and I live in a really terrible province. We're like the embarrassment of Canada, if you ask me, our province. Like it's bad.
Why do you say that?
Oh, our what is he called? Our premier of our province is just an idiot.
Yeah.
He would be like your right-wing ultra conservative.
Yeah. I mean,
Ultra Republican.
you
Like,
know who we've had, like who
yeah,
we just got done dealing with. So, and
yeah.
Mike Pence is from the state that I live in.
Yeah.
Like the man who believes that people like me should be like electrocuted to fix us, who
Like,
supports this. Like, ah!
like last summer, he decided that the pandemic was over and opened everything up.
Oh, it's done.
It was just done. And
So
because he wanted to have
Miss Rona left. She must still
done.
be here, but she's
Like, don't you know the pandemic is over. We're in the after part now, and he literally opened everything up. And then there was this huge surge in COVID. Shocking, I know. But he pandered to, there's a very small demographic here in Alberta who are like redneck hillbillies who don't believe
really.
Yeah, they think COVID is a government conspiracy.
Canadian hillbillies.
Oh my God. And thinking that, having to wear a mask in public is like infringing upon their freedoms. They went to, they're the ones who did the truck convoy shit that just went down in Canada. That was led out of Alberta.
Oh, shit.
I believe. Yeah. A lot of them were from Alberta. Yeah. Walking with Nazis. But, we're not white supremacists.
Sure. Yikes.
Like, well, okay. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to be from Alberta these days.
So, like, let me ask you this. This is something else that I'm really interested in down here in the holler. Cryptids. Canadian cryptids. Is that a thing? You guys have some cryptids out there, right?
What's a cryptid?
Like Bigfoot, the abominable snowman.
Oh.
La Chupacabra. I feel like, what's her name from Jake Richards' book, Appalachian or Backwoods Witchcraft, old Miss Wilson from The Devil's Looking Glass, like folkloric entities of the land that you
like Bigfoot. Yeah, that Bigfoot would be one. Honestly, I'm pulling a blank.
I would surely think that like there's something. I feel like we in Indiana we have this thing called an agua, I think is what it's called, and it's essentially a giant turtle that's like, this is a spirit. Okay, this is not. I would pray, because if I was down at the lake and a turtle the size of an SUV pulled up next to me, that would be the end for me personally. I don't know. I might be I don't know. Is it aggressive? I don't know. I've never met one, but yeah, giant turtle. It's a native, like, indigenous spirit to my southern Indiana. Also we have like the Kentucky goblins, like straight up goblins. Reading Backwoods Witchcraft, which was the book chosen for the book club that I'm a part of, voted on by the community, really opened my eyes to a lot of like some of our quote unquote cryptids possibly being from like just a blend of like Native American indigenous spirits and like spirits that German and Irish immigrants brought from their homelands with them. Like, we have a ton of like werewolf lore, apparently. Oh, like werewolves are a thing here.
I know when we have locally, and again, it's indigenous, is the Wendigo. I don't know a lot about it. I just know it's like an.
You guys have Wendy boys? Wendy boys?
Wendigos,
if you will.
Yeah. But I couldn't tell you anything about them. I haven't really researched it. I'm not big. I'm not big on the things.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. I'm not. I don't know. I've never really just put a lot of time thinking into like Bigfoot and stuff like that. Of like, are they real? I don't know.
I personally think that most of these things are more of like spirits, is how I look at them. Like, I don't necessarily personally believe in Bigfoot
There's an
as literal.
actual physical.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think so. But I could very easily rationalize this idea that like something like Bigfoot could have theoretically existed at some point, maybe. Or this could also just be something from our human consciousness from like way, 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 way back that like we have as like a generational inherited spiritum, essentially.
That's what they say about dragons, because like every culture has some version of a dragon in it. I just watched a YouTube video on it, and like they went through like all these different countries throughout all these different cultures throughout the world, and how they had dragon lore, and they're like, why does like almost every culture have this dragon lore? And that was their supposition, was that it was passed from like a prehistoric time. That this was passed forward. And yeah,
I saw this question in the chat about like, is Lorelai also from Indiana? I'm not sure if she's from Indiana, but she's in my area.
She is from Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, she's not too far, because like our circles have kind of crossed and intermingled in this area. So
yeah.
And then Australia says it's not normally discussed as a spirit. That's, yeah. I think that a lot of these cryptids, to me, like, I also don't necessarily think that like same with Bigfoot, like, is really walking around the Pacific Northwest, because that's where most of our like Bigfoot is. We also have like a skunk ape in the South. We have the goat man throughout Appalachia. Like, I wish the goat man was real. I wish the goat man could come pick me up.
And I feel like this is one of those differences between Canada and the States, because you guys have some real pockets of actual like American, well, I don't know if it's witchcraft, but American like magical occultism. Like, you've got Appalachia, you've got
the like South, like New Orleans. Salem has kind of become like a mecca too. Arizona, Tucson, Arizona is a big extraterrestrial alien sort of hub. Actually,
you guys kind of have this like culturally, it's not from somewhere else. It's actually like American lore, and I don't know that we have a lot of that in Canada. If I'm wrong, if somebody in the comments knows, like, shout it out, because I'd love to know more about Canada, but we don't have.
Yeah, truthfully, I also am pretty ignorant. I don't know a lot about like Canadian lore or like spirits and stuff. And it's really been through kind of like unraveling more of my personal gnosis when it comes to like traditional witchcraft. Because like this book really did, like Keldon's book really did kind of like give me some of these aha moments where I was like, wow, like it's pretty crazy how like treading the mill, for example, like we've literally in our coven, we've been doing that 4 or 5 years now. We didn't call this treading the mill though, but like, that's not a foreign concept to me. The fetch thing, not a foreign concept to me. So to me, it was kind of like, I don't know, it was kind of like confirmative and cool. To like feel like I was being led in this way that I didn't even have language for. Like, that's Australia would like to know what ring you're wearing, about your rings.
That one?
Gorge. She's gorge.
It's old. I bought this when I was 21. It's older than my daughter, but they still make it. So I always got to look on the inside. It is Alchemy Carta out of England. Alchemy Carta.
Cool. Yeah, I don't really have anything too exciting. I did get this Hesperia thing recently. So like, this is my new Hesperia ring. This one, it's beautiful. Like, it's got like a moonstone and a quartz, and it's like an eye kind of. I don't know. I got that. I don't really have anything super crazy though.
No, I just have my wedding band, and then this one. I wear this like every day. I never take it off. Like, I don't know if you saw, I had to like struggle to get it off because it's actually like mushed down to my finger now. But I put it on about almost 2 years ago. And I put it on one day and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to wear this. And if people take issue, screw them. Like, I'm done. Like, it was just right before I made the YouTube channel. And I was like, you know what? Like, that's it. I'm like, quote unquote, going public. Like, I'm tired of pretending that this isn't part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And if all my Christian friends can walk around with crosses on all the time, why can't I walk around with a pentacle on?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and that's something I really like about your channel too, is like, there are really all different types of witches. Like, a witch does not look one particular way. And I thought it was really like endearing and authentic. And like, when you were talking about how you're just this suburban mom who's also a witch, and like, that's a thing too. Like, witches are suburban moms too.
Yeah. Like, I'm not witchy. I'm not like, you know, crazy makeup and like long straight black hair and, you know, goth dresses.
Whatever
like,
witchy is supposed to be, even.
Yeah,
Because I think most
not
of our
that.
witchy aesthetic is really just blasphemized Catholicism schoolgirl. Like, isn't that not kind of what the witchy aesthetic kind of has evolved into?
A little bit, yeah.
Well, I'm looking at our time here and we're at like 55.
Oh.
I think I can only technically stream for an hour with this StreamYard thing. Otherwise, it won't let me upload it. So we should probably wrap this up, this stream. However, I would seriously love to, whether I come onto your channel or you come back onto mine, I'm fine with hosting. I'm fine with showing you how to work StreamYard too. If that's something that you're interested in. I don't know how familiar you are with it. It's super easy. But yeah, and I really enjoyed talking with you and you coming on the channel. And now I'm kind of like,
for having me.
Yeah, and now I'm kind of like, I want to drink a couple more White Claws and get on Google and be like, Canadian folklore, witches of Canada. Like, there's got to be something. Like, I'm sure you guys have indigenous, like native herbs to this region, and like, there's got to be something.
Yes, there's a lot of like, a lot of indigenous lore and stuff around here, but. Yeah, it's again, this is something I actually want to talk to you about. We're running out of time, but it was, you know, about that whole idea of like, we live on stolen land.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't want to appropriate, and I don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to take all of your lore and build it into my witch practice, because again, that just seems like more taking and not so much giving. So
No, I think it's a fine line. I also think it's rude to not acknowledge the spirits that are all around you. Like,
oh yes.
Like, I think it's doing a huge disservice to the land itself to not even care enough to acknowledge it for what it is.
That's part of your genius loci, right? It's also the spirits of the people who have lived and died here in the past, right? And that wasn't always white settlers.
We're going to have to do another stream together.
There's so much more.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm sorry, guys, that I didn't really look at the chat a whole lot, but Hellbound Heathen, good to see you. Lynn Smith, Little Red, good to see you. Rhea Kitten, of course, Stradia, love ya. I saw some other ones in here tonight. I think there's some folks. I Shine as Shayna. I saw a couple people, I think, actually from your channel too. Yeah. Georgina, thank you for joining. Beanbag Hagwag, thank you for joining. Kara, Necro, thank you. Whispers of Three, Star Ruby. Yeah. This has been fun, you guys. If you're listening to this playback, because I kind of grabbed this idea from House of Witchcraft, but if you're listening to this playback, like, type the keyword maple. We'll just do that. That'll be the keyword. So like, just use the word maple in the comments somewhere.
My channel is just Taya Kennedy.
And I also have it linked in the description of this video. So please go check out their channel as well. Hey, Shane, thanks for joining. But yeah, go check out their channel as well. Like, they make great content, traditional witchy content, which is wonderful, but also just like them. I like your videos too, where it's just like, I feel like we're hanging out. You know what I mean? Like when you were filming down in your basement and you're like, here's my kids' stuff back here. Like, here's my basement. Like, yep. I like that. I like that a lot. But yeah, you guys, I'm going to close this live. thank you so much again for coming on. And thank you all so much for watching. And I have a stream coming up on Cricket Song's channel. And we're going to be talking about left-hand path, right-hand path stuff. And then the Wednesday after that, she's going to be on my channel. And we're going to talk about social media witchcraft. So check that out. And then Taya and I are going to figure out another time to stream. So, and we're going to talk behind the scenes about stuff that we can't talk about live. So, okay.
All the secrets.
Bye.